Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're taking a look at Heretic. That's that Hugh Grant horror movie you might have heard about with the religion and the Mormons. We took a look at it, and we're excited to tell you what we think. We're also going to take a look at Emilia Pérez. This is a offbeat, genre-bending thriller musical on Netflix. And being a Netflix feature, nobody's heard about it in our lives. I hadn't heard about it till Andy pointed out to me. It's actually a pretty cool movie. Stick around for the review. Emilia Pérez is doing something special. Andy's going to take a look at Blitz. He caught this in theaters, which is nuts. An Apple TV feature starring Saoirse Ronan. I'm excited to hear from him towards the end of the episode about that. We're going to talk about upcoming trailers, new Mission Impossible trailer. We're going to get to it. That weird Minecraft trailer, the live action How to Train Your Dragon. It's been nuts at the movies. And before we get to all that, we need to get to the news. Before we get to the news, let's talk about what we watched this week, because Andy has watched some bangers, and I'm looking forward to talking to him about it. So, Andy, what have you watched this week?
So, courtesy of you, Zach, I from the Criterion Collection, I watched The Sound of Metal from 2019. Just the first half. I still got to finish it. We reviewed this back when it came out, and this is, of course, about a metal drummer played by Riz Ahmed who suddenly goes deaf and has to kind of accept a new life as a deaf person. Really incredible, powerful movie. And then I also took a look at A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which is an Iranian movie from 2014 about a vampire that's in black and white. It was a big deal back in the day. I remember hearing a lot about it, and someone recently recommended it to me, so I decided to take a look. Enjoyed that a lot as well.
Yeah, I can't recall what episode we saw Sound of Metal on. If I was sharper, I'd have it ready to go. But yes, we did cover Sound of Metal. I remember liking it. I remember it being a good time, and especially connecting with it because I'm a bit hard of hearing myself. So I can relate to like, ooh, what's this ringing I'm hearing in my ears? This is no good. Like, yeah, it's a real, very grounded sort of feature.
Yeah, that when because it happens within the first like 10, 15 minutes of the movie, he goes just starkly deaf. And it's kind of horrifying. Like it's like, yeah, I mean, he doesn't know what's going on. He's trying to get it fixed, see a doctor. And he's also, him and his girlfriend, played by Olivia Cook from House of the Dragon fame now. They're both recovering addicts. And so that plays a role in it as well. It makes everything that much more difficult. But yeah, it's an incredible movie, incredible sound design.
I have not seen A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I know I heard about it in 2014 and that it was like a sleeper. People should check it out. But I was in college then, and I was figuring my life out. Got a soundbite for me for the rest of us? I mean, what do you think? Good, bad, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yeah, I can see why it was making waves. It's very subversive because the titular, it's a vampire story, and the girl who walks home alone at night is the vampire, and she is the predator. She is the one, and she kind of has a taste for these men like that are like scoundrels, like a drug dealer and another guy who's an addict. Like, so it's very subversive and feminist in that way. She's not afraid to walk alone at night because she's not afraid of danger. She is the danger, to quote Walter White. And it's also it's almost like a silent film because so much of the movie there's no dialogue. It's just music and just acting, like characters, how they behave around each other, the way they look and touch and feel. It's also a movie about loneliness. We have our cast of characters who are all kind of suffering from cripplingly loneliness, including our heroine, who's a lone vampire as well. So a fascinating little movie. It's in black and white, and it's only 100 minutes. So
hey, you heard it here first, folks. Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Probably not first because it's been out for a minute, but I'll have to check it out. I didn't watch anything this week, which is super lame. I watched the movies we're doing for the podcast. And other than that, I've been, on the apps and on social. It's fine. I'll get around to watching more stuff. What I want to talk about this week is Disney and Star Wars. In our first news story, new Star Wars trilogies in the works from X-Men alum Simon Kinberg. Can you translate this to English for the rest of us, Andy? Who the hell is Simon Kinberg? What do you mean we're getting a new Star Wars trilogy? This sounds like big news.
So Simon Kinberg helped produce the early X-Men movies, The Last Stand, X-Men First Class. He made his directorial debut with X-Men Dark Phoenix, which is really bad, but he did help produce the first Deadpool movie, and he's also produced Star Wars Rebels, which was a big hit. So he's a bit of a hit and miss director, and he's been tasked with a new trilogy to continues the Skywalker saga, allegedly past the events of Rise of Skywalker in 2019.
Yeah. What's interesting about this story is Simon Kinberg being involved. My man does not have the most brilliant track record for movies. And hey, everybody needs a second shot at it. I get it. Like, you learn by doing and you grow through failure. And maybe, a trilogy from Simon Kinberg is exactly what Star Wars needs. But one thing we know, if you've been keeping an eye on Star Wars like we have, is Disney just has like a rotating
revolving door.
Revolving door of, that's exactly the word I was looking for, of creators who have joined Star Wars and then left Star Wars. It is bonkers how many people have jumped onto a project and then quietly left it. And it's funny because when this story came out on November 7th from Variety, like, it also mentioned that there are a couple Star Wars movies still coming. They got that Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming from Jon Favreau. That's supposed to be maybe mid 2026. And then hopefully a Rey movie coming in December 26. And that is perfectly the perfect segue to follow up on our next story. Just 7 days later, or 8 days later, on the 15th, when Hollywood Reporter reports that Disney is taking Star Wars off the 2026 calendar. What the hell, Andy? Why can't Disney make a Star Wars movie?
This was so funny because in a week we went from a new Star Wars trilogy and to a Star Wars trilogy battles for who's going to get Daisy Ridley to be in their movie, because there was also a Rey movie that was supposed to be happening. And then a few days later, it was the Rey movie getting cut, getting axed. It was supposed to come out summer of 2026 or December 2026. That's no longer happening. The Mandalorian and Grogu is still supposed to come out in May of 2026. And that one movie got cut. We'll see, because these Star Wars projects get announced and get cut constantly. I'm not certain any of these are going to come out. I think The Mandalorian is probably the closest one, but that's still a year and a half away, and a lot could happen between now and then.
Yeah, Daisy Ridley seems to be joining Mahershala Ali in the ranks of like Disney cast who are just kind of waiting in the wings for their projects to come together. They can't make a Blade movie, and seemingly they can't make a Rey movie either. I don't get it. And we do a lot of movie podcast stuff, so it seems like we would have our fingers on the pulse of this situation. But I don't understand why they cannot get over this executive dysfunction they seem to have and just find a creative through line and let somebody make a project. Last episode, I talked about Matt Reeves making the Batman, right? Like, a director comes along and says, hey, I want to make a Batman feature, and there's a lot of big scary premise around that, right? Like, oh, it's Batman, and what's it going to be like? Is it going to be like Nolan's Batman, or is it going to be like Tim Burton's Batman, or Joel Schumacher? Is it going to be like the comics? And he was like, no, I'm not going to do any of that. Like, I have a clear story. I have a clear vision. Let me work. And he made the Batman with Robert Pattinson. And it's good. And it's fine. And now there's a Penguin spinoff show on HBO, and they're making a part 2 in 2026. Like, that's all they need. They just need to get out of their own way and let people make movies, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah. Again, they're too reactionary to what they read on Twitter. Like, they make an announcement and it seems like they wait to see what kind of the reception is. And if the reception isn't buzzing, they cut it. They're like, well, the fans aren't really that excited about it. Instead of just saying, hey, let's come up with a great creative idea, announce it and do it, and just plow through. Like, they're going to go see it. You think they're not going to go see Daisy Ridley light up a lightsaber?
Yeah, people will absolutely turn out for that. That movie will make $700 million, no problem. Also, D23 Brazil, in lieu of this December 26th Star Wars date that they were aiming for in 2026, instead they've replaced that with Ice Age 6, starring Ray Romano and Queen Latifah and John Leguizamo, reprising their voice roles from the previous 5 Ice Age films. I think Disney acquired this when they acquired 21st Century Fox, right? Like, that's how they got the Ice Age property. It'll make money. Last one made $400 million at the global box office. May not be a billion, but it'll do good, right?
Yeah, a kid's movie's always a safe bet at Christmas. And if you don't got the Star Wars or the Avatar property, it's a good safe bet.
Speaking of safe bets, we have our hosts for the next Oscars. Oscars are a big thing every year, right? Who's going to host the Academy Awards? Who's going to be there when La La Land gets picked over Moonlight in some freak incident from Warren Beatty? Who's going to be the funny man or funny woman, funny person who comes along and pleases us and entertains us over the course of the evening? And most importantly, who can withstand the drama? This year, it's Conan O'Brien. Yeah, Conan, right? He's going to be hosting the 97th Academy Awards on Sunday, March 2nd, 2025. Andy, what do you think of the pick?
This is a great pick. Conan he's done TV for so long, and he's really funny, and he knows how to do good like PG TV from doing his late night show, because no one wants to host the Oscars. It's a very kind of scary gig because you can't be too mean, and generally at shows like this, the host will kind of roast the members of the audience, whether it's the Grammys or the Tonys or things like that. But people are kind of scared to do that at the Oscars, because the people in the room are ultra famous and ultra wealthy, and they're also the people in the movies and that fund your movies, and so no one really wants to take a dig at anyone too much. So then it all seems very soft glove, it's just very weak and very lame, and it's like none of the jokes ever land. It's just and it can be a disaster and go down very poorly as well. So I think Conan is a great pick. He is really funny. He's someone that can probably find that line of like staying very soft glove but still being really entertaining. I think he's a tremendous pick.
Yeah. Academy CEO Bill Kramer and President Janet Yang said in a statement, "We're thrilled and honored to have the incomparable Conan O'Brien host the Oscars this year. He's the perfect person to help lead our global celebration of film with his brilliant humor, his love of movies, and his live TV expertise." That's an important one. The live TV is real important. His remarkable ability to connect with audiences will bring viewers together to do what the Oscars do best, honor the spectacular films and filmmakers of this year. Added O'Brien on Twitter or X. America demanded it, and now it's happening. Taco Bell's new cheesy chalupa supreme. In other news, I'm hosting the Oscars. Yeah, I think he's a good pick. I think he's a great pick. Who doesn't like Conan O'Brien? He kind of got shafted on that whole NBC thing a while back, but it's fine. He came back on TBS. Now he's got a podcast and an HBO limited series. Why not? Why not have Conan O'Brien do it? One more story from the Oscars, from the movies this week, from the box office. Red One is out. And it's not doing so good. And it's funny because when I tell people, hey, Red One's underperforming this weekend, they go, what? What's that? What's Red One? And I say, oh, it's that movie with The Rock and Chris Evans. They got to save Santa. And they're like, what? What's that? Yeah, it cost $250 million, right? What do you know about this, Andy?
So we have not seen this. We were very strong against seeing this thing. They were really riding a lot on this movie. They were hoping it was going to be like a Christmas classic in the vein of something like Elf that people would rewatch for years to come. And they were saying, it's going to have an 8-week run in the theaters, and it's kind of a dud. And it looks so uninteresting. It looked like a straight to streaming movie. I thought it was one. 32 million is not bad. Nearly 100 million globally. But it needs to make like $500 million to break even with a $250 million budget. Like, again, general guidance is 2.5 times whatever the budget is. So you're looking at over 50 million to break even, and we're nowhere close. So this looks like a dud.
Dude, Red One joins a series of films in Dwayne Johnson's biography that are big flops, like big budget. Totally doesn't work. I don't know how many more times this man can get away with this. Fortunately, he's working with A24 on The Smashing Machine with one of the Safdie brothers. I can't remember if it's Josh or Benny, but he's over there doing something unique and something dramatic, and I think that's a good, smart pivot for his career. I really do. Also saw him on some behind-the-scenes photos of the Moana live action earlier today, because they're working on that movie still. Man, my man is having he's an interesting intersection in his career, an inflection point, as it were. Meanwhile, Chris Evans just appears to be getting the bag, right? Like, my man knows how to get a paycheck. I feel like if he wants to be in something interesting, like Knives Out, he'll do it. And otherwise, he'll just show up in Apple TV's like Ghosted or this movie, right? Like, just getting your family paycheck. Why not, right? Paying for kids' college.
I mean, actors... Acting is a job. They got bills too. They got to work, and sometimes that means doing bad and mediocre movies. But yeah, this looked exceptionally bad. I don't know who it was aimed at, because it looked like it was trying to be like a Marvel movie without being an official Marvel movie, because it had like all this CGI action, had that same kind of quippy dialogue. But I was like, well, it's a little bit too violent or for like the kids, and kind of too kiddie for adults. So I don't know who the target audience was. Nobody, it seems like.
Yeah, and it's like, it's a Christmas movie coming out in November. Probably should have just aimed for December, like, I get it, but yeah, it seems like
they were hoping that they were just gonna it's gonna play for the next 8 weeks into Christmas. We'll be fine.
Right. This will be huge.
It's gonna be on VOD in a week.
Yeah, not so. Anything else in the box office you want to cover before we jump into Heretic?
There wasn't much on this story. I want to point out the Greatest Christmas Pageant, which isn't in this story. I just looked at the numbers, which is a remake of an older film of the same name about kind of a ragtag rambunctious family who gets put in this like prestigious church's Christmas pageant. Made like $5 million. It was real. So it's number 3 at the box office. A real impressive actually for that size movie. But the rest of it is stuff that's already been out. The Wild Robot, Venom. But this weekend is going to be different. Wicked is looking to make maybe $100 million this weekend. Gladiator 2, not quite as strong, but it's going to be a big weekend at the movies.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal. Hollywood Reporter pointing out here that many have dubbed the upcoming weekend Moana Apocalypse or Glicked. I don't think either of those have the riz of like Barbenheimer, but Glicked's not bad, I guess. You know, it's like a C tier.
You're never going to get another Barbenheimer like that. That name is just too perfect.
No, I've seen like sites to this day still selling like vintage T-shirts with prints of like Barbenheimer on it, with like Cillian Murphy like lifting up Margot Robbie on his shoulder with a big explosion in the background, like ridiculous. Anyway. With that, we got to jump into the movies. We got to talk about stuff we saw this week. I'm going to be taking the first summary here, so please excuse any clumsy delivery from me. The movie is Heretic. So, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East play Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton, 2 young Mormon missionaries who are on a mission. I think that's what it's called in Mormonism. Somebody's going to roast me in the comments for that. But they are visiting local houses, spreading the word of the Lord, right? Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When one house they come across is home to Hugh Grant, playing a man whose wife is just in the other room baking a blueberry pie. He is interested in finding out more about Mormonism. He invites them in. They sit down on the couch and they start to have a discussion. And they quickly find out that Hugh Grant knows more than he is letting on here. He actually has studied the faith quite closely, maybe more so than they have. And as he starts to ask questions, this conversation starts to develop into something that may be a little bit deeper than they had expected, and Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton quickly find out they're in over their head. And when he ducks into the other room to check on the pie, they go to leave and find out the door is locked and the windows don't open and you can't leave. And as they turn back, they begin to travel deeper into the house, uncovering a host of mysteries in Heretic. This is an exciting new horror feature from A24. It is definitely a kind of smaller joint. And it's got a good cast. Like I said, Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. And most importantly, it's written and directed by Scott Beck and Bryan Woods. If you don't know them, they are the writers of A Quiet Place. They wrote the original story and then penned the screenplay with John Krasinski. They had a hand in the next 2 films. They also wrote and directed 65, which was that Adam Driver dinosaur movie that came out last year that like nobody saw. So this is, I think, a refreshing return to form to them. And it's a sharp script that makes Heretic work so well, along with Hugh Grant, who does a fantastic job delivering the dialogue in this movie. Very heady, very exciting, and surprisingly pop culture. Yeah, the movie is Heretic. Andy, what'd you think?
Yeah, I like this. This was a lot of fun. It's a little horror movie. It's not anything incredible, but it's a nice time at the movies in the horror genre. This is one of those things where the horror comes that people are just too afraid of social norms to leave. Like it's very clear early on that Mr. Reed is not all who he says to be, but our young girls, they're too polite, they're too friendly, and they don't want to upset him, so they have a hard time just like running out of the house or being like, okay, you're crazy, let's go. But we see from the trailer that they're eventually, after kind of a long intro, they're presented with the choice to go through one of 2 doors to leave, one labeled belief and disbelief. And Hugh Grant he's monologuing the whole movie. He's just like word vomit a lot. It's really impressive because it's a ton of dialogue, and he's kind of challenging their beliefs, and he's basically a very strong-willed atheist person who's basically tells them that the religious beliefs are complete falsehoods, and I can't believe you believe any of this. So it's kind of a challenge of philosophies, but more going on than we think. And it takes a pretty sharp turn about halfway through, but it slowly builds that tension up again, that uncomfortableness of like, well, we need to leave, but I don't want to upset our our host, that whole kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun. And our basically three-man actors, Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, who's a real up and comer. She's like Anya Taylor-Joy was 7 or 8 years ago, and then newcomer Chloe East, who was also in The Fabelmans. Actually, I've never seen her in anything before, but she's great also.
Yeah, you're absolutely right with the too polite to leave thing. Reviewer Mark Kermode pointed out it's much like Speak No Evil, like James McAvoy horror that just came out a couple months ago. Same kind of energy, right? Like we're too nice to say, hey, y'all are being weird. We need to get out of here. But fortunately, like Heretic moves along pretty quickly. And once it turns into a kind of a, I don't want to say hostage situation, but fundamentally when they realize that they are trapped now and they have to dig deeper into this and continue deeper into the house and try to get out, like it becomes this psychological cat and mouse with a really charming puzzle box element to the environment they're in, right? The lights flick on and off randomly and things are on timers and there's this deadbolt system that they don't understand. And you're right, these two doors that Grant presents, belief and disbelief, and you got to pick one. And one of them, maybe both will lead you out of the house, but you have to ultimately decide this like for you. And as they try to start to figure out as Barnes and Paxton try to figure out what this man's motivation is and who he is and where this is all going and just how much danger they may or may not be in, like you get to have a lot of fun as the audience kind of twirling your mustache or sipping your drink and thinking, where is this all going? And it's a really great script. It's a really great script. You mentioned Hugh Grant's like fantastic monologuing, and he does a really brilliant job of holding down his scenes, but it's surprising how well written this thing is, because not only does it dig into theology of a number of different sects of Christianity and angles of religion, you've got a bit of history and some surprising pop culture. You may have seen some clips online of Hugh Grant doing a Jar Jar Binks impression, singing along to Creep's Radiohead, or comparing different versions of the Parker Brothers game Monopoly. All of these things happen in like the first half hour of Heretic, and it kind of only gets a little bit wilder. I do think it has a funny descent in Act 3, and I don't say that because they're just like descending stairs into the house, but it does take a turn that I think will divide people. It's got such a great start, and I think the ending of it is where people will either leave feeling like, man, that was a lot of fun, or being like, didn't really do it for me, didn't go where I was headed. Like it's got such a lofty open, like with these two Mormons who come in, and I like just from their opening scene, they're kind of questioning sexuality, and one of them, Thatcher's character, maybe doesn't believe as much as the other, whereas like Sister Paxton, Chloe East, is like very devout and was born into it, and like you can immediately see the divide between these two sisters, and that leaves like a lot of space for Hugh Grant's character to start to worm his way into like, how much do y'all actually believe what you're reading? You know, the stories of Joseph Smith, and those are legit. That's really how that went down. Like, it's good. Just start to sow those seeds of doubt, you know?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's really interesting is that our two Mormon missionaries here are very different. Like you said, Sister Paxton, played by Chloe East, is born into it. Her parents were Mormon. She's Mormon. That's all she's ever known. She's very more on the naive, sheltered side of life. We find out that Sophie Thatcher converted later in life, and that she, I think her mother also converted later in life. So she's kind of lived more in the real world a little bit more and been exposed to more. So her faith is just, it's different because it isn't grounded as someone who's been in the church their whole life. So we have our two main missionaries that are just a little bit different in their faith. And then of course, Hugh Grant, Mr. Reed, who is challenging them in what is kind of an unfair, it's like these videos where you see like a political pundit go on a college campus and debate a freshman, that sort of thing. It's a little unfair, but there's kind of a fascinating philosophy of like religion versus non-religion, and then maybe something more sinister going on. The other thing I will say, the trailer makes the house look enormous. It makes it look like there's all these shifting doors and things, and it's not really that big. That was the one thing I was like, hey, there's like 3 rooms in this house.
Yeah, there's one really clever sequence where there's kind of a a model of a house in the movie. And there's like one cool shot where they like pull out of a shot and it pulls out of like this hallway that the characters are in out into the model of the house. And they definitely milk that in the trailer, combined with like the logo, which is like these shifting things. Like somebody in marketing had to work over on this thing. They were like, we got to make it look exciting and it can't just be old Hugh Grant talking to people. But like those are the best parts of the movie. And the way Grant just draws you in from the very open when they meet him. Oh yeah, my wife's just in the other room. Come on in. And he starts to reveal that he is not the man he says he is. You very quickly realize that these girls, along with our characters, the girls, that they are not in a situation they believe they are in. Things are worse off. Yeah, you are not as safe as you thought. Maybe there isn't somebody in the other room. Like it all sets this perfect stage to cast doubt on larger beliefs, on larger ideologies, right? Like if you think I'm a trustworthy guy, and you know that I'm not based on my actions, then how do you feel about the people who founded your religion? The pastor who sent you here, right? Like how far down does this go exactly? Like what do you believe is true versus isn't? And like that makes Heretic a surprisingly fun movie, along with great performances. Really, I got to bring it back to Grant one more time, dude. He's so good. He might be doing the best work of his career. Like not in Heretic per se, but in the last like 5 years, he may be coming up in a totally different way from like the romantic heartthrob he used to be, in a way that is so much more exciting and like artistically defined, I think, than just being like, you know, the good looking guy, the clumsy yank in the rom-com of the month. He's doing a great job here.
Yeah, that's what's funny is that when we first meet him, he is absolutely like those characters from Notting Hill and those early 2000s, late 90s rom-coms that he used to be in, because he's so friendly. He's like, oh, come on in, we'll get you some pie. And he's unbelievably friendly. And then, but then the girls start to get worried. They're like, oh, we really need your wife in the room. And he's like, oh, okay, she's just in the other room. Let me go get her. And then he comes back out with like coffee or tea or something, you know, and then he keeps delaying it, and then it's like it's too late, but he does such a good job at being that kind of lovable goof until it's not time to be that anymore.
Right. Like even in like the frightening scenes, like it's still hard not to look at him with a smile just because he's so pleasant. Like even in the stuff that's like he's saying is you know, maybe concerning to our characters on screen, like you in the audience, like, God, Grant's great, dude. Like, oh my God, he's putting out great work. Fantastic work. Heretic's a lot of fun. Also not that long, hour 51. All right. Moves pretty good. Perfect. Good pacing. Perfect. Hard to complain. Any other thoughts before we get to recommendations, Andy?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Heretic?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially for horror head. It's a good entry into that genre. It also has, you know, some complex things to state about religion and belief and the power of those, regardless of whether or not it's set in reality. We have great performances from our leads, Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East, and of course the great Hugh Grant. It's not very long. It's not quite a bottle film, but it's a much smaller film for sure. This was a lot of fun. Definitely recommend.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Like Heretic is surprisingly a good time. I can't imagine everybody's going to go see it in theaters. It's a bit smaller than that, but it will come to streaming services. And when it does, like I would recommend you sit down and watch Heretic at some point. Like it's fun. It's a good time. It's soft. And most importantly, like Hugh Grant's a lot of fun in it. And yeah, Chloe East, Sophie Thatcher. Remind me of young Anya Taylor-Joy, Mackenzie Davis. So you got like the sharp edge and like the softy, you know, like great... Two fun sisters, bottle feature. It's a good time. It's a good time. Would recommend Heretic. And with that, we should talk about some upcoming trailers, some things that are coming out soon. 3 trailers this week. I kind of teased them in the intro, but I'm excited to get to them. Andy, you're kicking us off. What do we call this segment?
It's time for the trailer park. So I'm going to kick things off with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This was originally titled Dead Reckoning Part 2, but then there was a delay in filmmaking and they didn't want to confuse people with a 1 and 2-parter. The Final Reckoning, this will continue the previous movie. The trailer just shows a lot of vibes, which is what these Mission Impossible trailers do. They don't tell you any of the plot. You have no idea what's going on. They just show you a lot of cool stuff. And that's what we get in this. We have Tom Cruise hanging from a plane. Tom Cruise running full speed like he does in these movies. There's some underwater stuff. In the previous movie, this AI, these keys to the controlling this AI get trapped in this underwater submarine. That happens at the end of all the previous movies. So we see some of these them going down to get these things. And so we got Tom Cruise underwater holding his breath. We got our team back together. We got Ving Rhames sitting down again. We have some newcomers. Ethan,
the entity. Oh my God.
Yeah. We have some newcomers, at least listed, not in the trailer. Hannah Waddingham is showing up in this, as well as Katie O'Brien, whose career is just taking off. She was, of course, in Love Lies Bleeding, Twisters, and is now going to be in Mission Impossible. She's someone that's great to see on screen. Angela Bassett's character is back. She's the CIA boss character that was in Mission Impossible 6, but not 7, but will be in 8. See, I don't know how I remember all these things.
Dude, I don't either. Oh my gosh.
But it looks a lot of fun, just lots of action, lots of vibes. I'm a big fan of the series. I love the series the way a lot of people like the Fast and the Furious series. So I'm looking forward to this at all. And this comes out May 23rd, I believe. Yes, May 23rd, which I believe is Memorial Day weekend. So that'll be a big hit.
Yeah, I do not have the affinity for Mission Impossible like Dr. Draper does, but I would recommend finding a confidant in your life who does, because it's definitely helpful when you're like, which one was that again? What happens in that movie? And Andy's got it unlocked. It's crazy. I did not have an affinity for Dead Reckoning like I think a lot of people did online. I thought it was fine. This one looks very exciting, like and looks like it follows up on the former with a lot more action, a lot more Tom Cruise in this trailer, whereas like I remember that Dead Reckoning trailer, you don't see him for the first like 40 seconds of it or something. It's all just vibes. And what's his name? Kissinger just talking over the top of it, like I think this looks good. I think it looks exciting. There's no way it's the final Mission Impossible movie, but it's an ambitious title. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Final Reckoning, excuse me.
Final Reckoning.
May 23rd is when that's coming out. So keep an eye out for that. We'll cover it on the show. You want to hear that? You could just hit the subscribe button. We'll let you know when it comes out. We'll follow up with you. So, we got you. Speaking of things we'll follow up on, we're going to talk about this How to Train Your Dragon trailer. So DreamWorks has a trailer out for How to Train Your Dragon. And you're thinking, wait a second. That movie's already out. It sure is. But this is the live action adaptation. Yeah. From director Dean DeBlois, who's one of the original directors of the animated feature. How to Train Your Dragon tells the story of Hiccup, a young Viking in a world who lives on an island in a world of dragons. And one day he meets a particularly frightening one after feeling pressure from his father to go out and kill a dragon. Toothless, who is a nightshade, this big scary dragon who he finds in the woods, a rare one if there ever was. And unable to kill it, he ends up bonding with the creature. And the two of them go on to have a bunch of great adventures. It's How to Train Your Dragon. If you've seen the movie, you've seen this one. But this is DreamWorks' first real swing into live action adaptation a la Disney, right? We're just going to remake what we already made. And in a particularly special fashion, they've recruited much of the same talent. Dean DeBlois directed the first one. He's directing this one. Chris Sanders is not back. He was also the co-director. He's over working on that Lilo and Stitch live action that Disney's working on. This, I think, has gotten a lot of heat as being the latest in a series of like almost shot-for-shot live-action remakes, right? Andy, who is this for? I mean, besides children who won't know any better, right? Like,
that's exactly who it's for. The original How to Train Your Dragon came out in 2010. So if you were a kid then, this is 14 years ago, 15 years ago by the time this actually comes out. It's likely you might have some kids of your own by now. And yeah, it's one thing, my childhood can now be your childhood. And yeah, the kids aren't going to know any different. It does look a little soulless and drab. However, the score is amazing, doing a lot of heavy lifting. I think this is probably going to be a hit. This comes out June 13th, I believe. So it'll be part of the big summer releases. And it's like Inside Out 2 was last year. It's what you're going to take the kids to do that weekend.
You're absolutely right. One more big hit coming down the pipe this week. We got to talk about this trailer for a Minecraft movie. The Minecraft movie got a teaser trailer already, starring Jack Black, Jason Momoa, and Danielle Deadweiler. I don't recall her name.
Danielle Brooks.
Daniel Brooks, yes. The Minecraft movie got a previous trailer. We knew that it involved a bunch of characters from reality getting sucked into the world of the video game, where they meet Steve, Jack Black's character, who's playing the kind of the protagonist of the Minecraft game. Really, it's a whole Minecraft world, right? A mixture of live action and CGI. You got your creepers and your zombies and your wolves and your bees and your villagers and it's all here, right? And now this full trailer shows a little bit more of the story and how Steve got sucked into the world because he yearned for the mines, as all children do. It's a funny combination of like meme culture and teens who played Minecraft and hopefully getting children to come see this. And I think it's going to make $1 billion, but I don't think it's going to make anybody happy. What do you think of the trailer for a Minecraft movie, Andy?
Man, like we talked about with the Super Mario Brothers movies, there's a genre of film called movies for babies, and that's what this looks like. It doesn't look like, Inside Out 2 or The Wild Robot, that are movies for kids that have a lot of that are grown up in a lot of ways. It looks like it's you put it on to babysit the kids for 2 hours during the day. It looks so uninspired, and the human characters seem really out of place. Somehow Jack Black's stomach gets bigger in every trailer. Like he's just, I don't know why he's so. Give that. I mean, he just has like the tightest sweater ever. Like loosen it up, man.
Get that man on the Zep.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks. It just.
It's
looks
part of the
so
bit. Yeah, it's like tucked into his belt. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but this just looks so uninspired and boring, and I've played a fair amount of Minecraft in my own time, and I'm no interest to see this.
Yeah, I just don't know who's gonna care. It's like I feel like any dude gamer who cares enough, like, is 50% chance they just pirate it. And anybody else that's going to take their kids to go see it, like, the kids will like it. It's for babies, right? But everybody else is going to be like, it was boring. I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's a banger script. Maybe it's a heater, but like, it just looks rough, dude. Like, I don't know. I think it's a business first and art second kind of movie. That's what the Minecraft movie looks like. Maybe not. And hey, it's a Minecraft movie, not the Minecraft movie. More will come. That's the promise of a Minecraft movie, right? The promise of a brighter tomorrow, a better future. Speaking of brighter tomorrow, we got to talk about our next feature. This is a sleeper, and this is a movie was not on my radar. I had not heard about. I knew nothing about. Andy found this banger. How did you find this before you jump into it a little? Give me like, how did this come across your desk? I don't know. How'd you find this?
So I actually started hearing about this on some awards podcast that I listened to called Little Gold Men, where they go to film festivals, they talk about what's coming out and what's happening. And this premiered at Cannes, which is in May, and that's when I first heard about it. And there was lots of buzz about the kind of style of movie it is, the acting performances. So it's just kind of had a lot of buzz since then. There's awards talk for it for our leads for the Oscars, maybe some other categories as well. And again, it's a Netflix thing, and Netflix, while they make not great movies for most of the year, they do dip their toes into the awards race in November, December, and that's what this movie is.
All right. Well, I'm excited to talk about it. I went in with no expectations. I didn't watch a trailer. You just kind of told me the byline, and I was like, what? All right. And then watching it, I was like, okay. So I'm excited for people to hear that. You're the one setting this up. I'll get out of your way. Please take it away.
Emilia Pérez. So this is a complex movie. It's a crime musical thing. It stars Zoe Saldana as she is a high-priced lawyer called Rita. One day she gets a mysterious note to say, hey, do you want to earn a ton of money? I have an opportunity for you. Come meet me by this newsstand that nearby. And she's just gotten one of her kind of infamous clients off yet again. So she goes to this newsstand where she's quickly kidnapped and taken to a cartel leader named Manitas Del Monte, who says, I want to become a woman. I want to have a sex change operation, and I want you to help me accomplish this. I need someone to, do the research, set up the medical appointments, help me get this done. So this is kind of our setup, and that does happen. That is the first act of the movie, which is so interesting. That could be the entire movie. But so that happens, and then Manitas becomes Emilia Perez, played by Karla Sofía Gascón, who is a trans woman. And she basically wants to fake her death and start a new life, not being involved in the drug cartel anymore. But at the same time, she has a wife and kids. And after several years, she wants to come back into their lives. And she does. She shows up as like, oh, I'm the long lost aunt that your husband knew. And I have all this money that you can come live. So she ends up moving back to Mexico, but of course is very dangerous for her. And she still is essentially living a double life from her past and her control and her hiding kind of who she is still. And this is amongst lots of different musical numbers happening throughout in both English and Spanish. The movie's primarily in Spanish, and this is a French production directed by Jacques Audiard, and it's based on a novel by Boris Razon. So a lot going on. It's a complicated thing to talk about. Well, let's get into it. Zach, what do you think?
So Emilia Perez on paper does not sound like it would work, right? It is a foreign language thriller musical. It is a genre bender. It's got a cast I don't know a lot about. I know Selena Gomez okay. Like I know she did a bunch of Disney work and is doing Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. I like Zoe Saldana, but she's normally like green or blue in most movies, right? And she's definitely not singing and dancing. I don't know anything about this going in, but it wins a couple Cannes Awards and you say, hey, you should check it out. It's a good time. Dude, I can't believe I liked Emilia Perez. I like it. I think it's good. I think it's weird for sure, but somehow like it manages to draw you in. And it's a couple things I think that work really well. Number one, the visuals. It is very grounded. I can't believe how dark the blacks are in this movie. The shadows and darkness is so dark, and it creates this brilliant contrast of color and light, and actually really does a good job of setting up this visualizing the duality of the nature of this story, right? Like these two parts of a person, like this monstrous one half and this like kind-hearted, generous Emilia Perez on the other. Like, and the kind of good and evil and the light of darkness of the people of Mexico as they deal with cartel members versus like the innocence of family. Following that, like you've got the music that kind of works. It's not bad music. It's weird. A lot of it's kind of talk singing. And I know it's based on a book, and Jacques Audiard read it and thought, hey, I think I could make this a musical also, which is weird. But somehow like those, and then the genuine emotion behind it, like the genuine tears coming out of Karla Sofía Gascón, like the excitement coming from Zoe Saldana, like the rage and the anger coming from Selena Gomez, like somehow it all feels like this mixing pot grab bag of a movie that doesn't feel like it would work on paper, but does, and holds attention and holds space as a unique and interesting story. Like stunningly, Emilia Perez is kind of a banger, and I wish Netflix had marketed it more, and I wish more people heard about it, because I tell people about it and nobody knows what this movie is. So where do you want to start talking about it?
Well, why don't we talk about our performances? So Zoe Saldana is largely the lead. She's facilitating all this, and she ends up being Emilia Perez's kind of right-hand person. She eventually wants to start a nonprofit to help with the effects of the drug cartels in Mexico, and Zoe Saldana's Rita is put in a really kind of precarious situation where like she can't really say no anymore. Like even though she fulfilled her part of the contract, she kind of just keeps getting roped back in because she knows like, oh, this is actually a really violent drug cartel person who could have me killed if they wanted, and I probably can never say no to anything they ask. But she's facilitating all this. It's largely in Spanish, but she sings, she dances, she sounds great, she looks great in the musical numbers. Like it's a very demanding thing. Of course, Karla Sofía Gascón has a lot of heavy acting to do. Selena Gomez as well. Lots of Spanish. I didn't realize that Selena Gomez spoke Spanish, or if she doesn't, it's very convincing. She has most of her dialogue is in Spanish as well. So we just have really incredible performances, and like you mentioned, the four kind of main women shared the Best Actress prize at Cannes.
Yeah, a little bit of a cop out from Cannes because I knew that there was a Best Actress award given out, and watching the movie at first, I was like, Zoe Saldana crushed it. Oh my god! I think Karla Sofía Gascón really comes into the film, and you're like, wait a second, hold on, banger over here, and then Selena Gomez is good, and you're like, what is this about? So like, I appreciate that they couldn't decide who to give it to, so everybody gets one, but also like, yo, come on. Like, I thought one of them was going to spearhead it for the film, and then seeing they all got it, I was like, all right, fair. They're all great, and they are. Karla Sofía Gascón's transformation in this movie is genuinely stunning. And what's impressive, I think the most impressive about it, outside of how visually stark it is from the open, is how honest and genuine and authentic it feels. When we first see this character, they are Manitas, who is a cutthroat cartel monster. Leader of a cartel, would kill you if they had the chance. Horrible person. Zoe Saldana is terrified when we meet this individual. And when they tell them, hey, I need you to help me with something, and they say, well, what is it? They say, well, to listen is to do it. If I tell you, you're doing it. There is no negotiating with this. Finding out what this thing is they desire, this change, is so monumental and so big that they have to have their family moved out to Switzerland so they'll be safe, and the amount of things that have to go in to make this possible is nuts. And Manitas is horrifying. He's shot in like all shadow. You barely see him. Big crooked nose, face tats, like looks scars, like looks awful, right? And then you get some like genuine tears and some genuine emotion from this character, and you're like, oh man, this is nuts. And then you get this big leap, 4 years, and actually seeing Emilia Pérez as they intend to be, as the person they want to be, is like wildly powerful. And like watching the movie, you're like, who is this actress? Who is this person? Like, I don't know anything about them. Looking on IMDb, you find out they have a whole history with their identity. Like, it's so genuine, and it's kind of pure in a way that I didn't expect, especially for a movie that claims to be like a thriller musical, right? Like, what does that even mean? What does it mean to make a thriller musical? Apparently Jacques Audiard knows. Like, this is something special.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and the musical numbers are like it's a different kind of musical. It's not like Wicked that's about to come out, or West Side Story, where it's a big like, okay, now we're singing and dancing, and we're belting our thing. It's very subtle. Like there are a couple of big numbers, but a lot of the musical things are very small and very like kind of private, and almost like it's not like full belting out things. It's a lot of very almost reminded me of Joker a little bit, where it's a lot of very quiet, a little bit like we would say like under supported singing, because again, it's not about like the big numbers. It's about the emotion of the characters and what's happening in the scene. So it's a very different kind of musical.
Additionally, I had no idea where the script was going, and I said it's based on a 2018 book already. But like the first act of this movie would be another movie's whole movie. Like that, a lawyer getting kidnapped and figuring out how am I going to make this possible for this drug kingpin and stay alive. That would be a whole movie all by itself. So by the end of the first half hour, I had no idea where Emilia Pérez was going, which is great, I think, and a lot of fun. It does take a funny turn in Act 2 when Emilia Pérez decides, hey, you know what? Like, I can't live without my family. Like, they're the most important thing in the world to me. And now that I found myself, like, I realize that, like, they're too important and I want them to be in my life. Very sincere, very genuine as well. But you do get a little bit of what people have been referring to as a Mrs. Doubtfire plot. And I don't say that to be funny because it's not. But they do kind of do that gag.
Yet,
like,
yeah.
You don't recognize me, right? No, who are you? And it's like, maybe. It's an incredible transformation. It really is. But like, it's a little weird. And just like Mrs. Doubtfire, like, it's coming crashing down eventually. It's not going to last, right? Like, they're going to figure out. Yeah. They're going to figure out that that's Robin Williams. Like, it's going to happen. And that gives it kind of a bit of suspense, a bit of a boilerplate, especially for a character who formerly was so absurdly violent, right? Like horrible monster, R-rated violence kind of character. Like, that it's going to get nasty. It's going to get nuts. It can't all be good, and that creates like a really funny setting, like for Act 2, like really funny energy for Act 2 and 3 kind of going into the movie.
Yeah, it's really interesting that Emilia cannot like she goes from living one double life to another double life, and before but when she's a pre-op trans woman to after, and she fakes her death and then comes back into the lives of her children and wife, And it's a strange dynamic because she has to hide that part of herself. Yes, she can't pretend that she's the father of the children or be fatherly. She has to be like the fun aunt. She has to see Selena Gomez's character get a new boyfriend and start dating, and that it eats away at her, even though it just like, so there are these kind of dynamics that she's still struggling with being her true self because of the situation, kind of wanting it all, which you can't have it all.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I think there's some fascinating themes. I feel like it kind of, the messaging is a little unclear at the same time, but by the end of it, but it's a fantastic ride.
A couple other notes from me before we wrap up on this one. Like I said, the visuals are really stunning. Like, I think the musical numbers give Audiard a lot of room to get creative behind the camera. And there's a lot of creativity here, like crazy pans, hard dollies, like slow moves, a lot of creative musical numbers in here. And that's not something I expected from... The only other film I've seen of Jacques is The Sisters Brothers, which we covered on this show. And that was a pretty paint by numbers Western for me, at least visually. It doesn't do a whole lot. It's real wild. And this, meanwhile, I was like, this is like subversive and smart. This is clever. Along with like the crazy color grading in this movie. Like the contrast is jacked way up, big saturation, like big color. And yeah, when it is night out in the desert, it is night in the desert. You cannot see anything. And that gives you like this really clever cover of darkness to like tell story through. And I think that's fitting thematically for what Emilia Pérez is doing as well. I like the music in it. There's a couple bangers I've been listening to on Spotify since I listened to it. I know a lot of it's foreign language, but not all of it. Let's not be scared of subtitles. We're bigger than that. I feel like I'm running out of things to say. Any other thoughts for recommendations, Andy?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Emilia Pérez?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic musical, very different from something like Wicked, and it's a musical that's not afraid to be one. Like the songs aren't hidden in the marketing. We have fantastic performances from Zoe Saldana, Karla Sofía Gascón, Selena Gomez, and Adriana Paz, who all shared the acting award at Cannes. And it's a fascinating thing. And I was really drawn in by like kind of the crime aspect of it, because that's still such a big part of the narrative. And like I said, the first act is fantastic and could be a movie all its own, and it has so much more to say. So highly recommend. This is already streaming on Netflix if you have a subscription to that.
Yeah, I think Emilia Pérez is cool. I don't know who to recommend it to. That's the biggest struggle. Like, it's not for everyone for sure. And it's a little over 2 hours, I think. So like you got to be a little committed to get into it. But like, just as an example, I was watching this the other night, and Chris came in the room and she was like, hey, what are you watching? Like, what is it? Zoe Saldana movie? I was like, yeah, it's a thriller musical foreign language feature. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, it's about this character transitioning. It's nuts. You got to check it out. She ended up watching like an hour of it with me. Like, just sitting like, she was like, what is it? Like, it is surprisingly spellbinding. It's surprising how well this movie works. And if anything, I think it's worth checking out just for that. Like, just to see how effective it is at drawing you in. Like, it's a confident project. It's good, dude. I wish Netflix had done more marketing. I don't know if they just were too busy, or maybe they were scared of the themes. Like, I don't know. But like, Emilia Pérez is a banger. You should check it out. It's a good time. With that, one more movie to talk about on the podcast, and I'm horribly out of sorts. I totally forgot Andy was covering this mini review. I do not have trailer footage to run next to this. I might make some in post. I might not. So if you're watching on YouTube, apologies. All right, that's my bad this week, but it's okay because Andy is here with a hot new review. Andy, what is this movie?
Blitz. This is the latest film from director Steve McQueen, who famously did 12 Years a Slave and Shame, and he's a fantastic filmmaker. Last year did a 4-hour kind of semi-documentary film about the occupation in the Netherlands during World War II. Blitz is also a World War II film. It is about the London Blitz, which was a period of about 8 months of Axis bombing of London, where they bombed nearly every night, bombing warehouses, manufacturing, that sort of thing. And the people of London just lived under this, which is kind of incredible to think about. in practice, the air raid sirens would go off. People would just grab whatever they could, maybe a suitcase, their kids, and then just head to the bombing shelters underground. Sometimes they were open, sometimes they weren't. So the movie kind of covers, it's like slice of life during this time. And we follow Saoirse Ronan's family. Her name is Rita. She lives with her father, and she has a mixed race son. And the movie touches on issues of misogyny and racism, but what happens in the movie is that they sent the children away, like to the countryside, to be safe from the bombing. She sends her son George, played by newcomer Elliot Heffernan, who's incredible. He puts the whole movie on his back. She puts him on a train to go out to the countryside. He gets about halfway there and then hops. He doesn't want to do it. He was angry about being sent away. Hops off the train, catches one back into London, and then it's an Odyssey like film for him to get back home. He's trying to navigate the streets and comes across different kinds of characters, some helpful, some not. Meanwhile, Saoirse Ronan she's working at a factory helping produce weapons, like a lot like Rosie the Riveter style person, and dealing with those kinds of things. And so the movie, again, it's slice of life of this, and it has these incredible sequences that are like Saving Private Ryan level war scenes, where like the bombing is happening and everyone's trying to escape and get away, and it's like anxiety inducing. I will say the narrative itself is a little weak. It's not very compelling. It is actually largely a kids film because Saoirse Ronan is the supporting character. She's not the main character. It's about George, the younger kid trying to get home. But the craft is incredible. You have scenes with like thousands of extras all like flooding into the London subway to hide from the bombing, all with period appropriate clothing. So just from the filmmaking perspective, it's incredible. The script is probably one of the weaker things that Steve McQueen has done, but I really enjoyed it overall.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask about the scale of it, because the last film we watched by McQueen on this show was 2018's Widows, which is solid, and nobody I know in my life has seen. Everybody's like, what's Widows? Oh, yeah, I think I saw a trailer. But like, nobody remembers Widows, and it's a shame, because it's good. Great Daniel Kaluuya in that movie. Great, yeah. Anyway, I want to ask about the scale of it. Like, since we haven't watched a McQueen movie in 6 years on this show, most of his previous work is pretty small. Not low budget, but like small scale, right? He's not doing like national World War projects or anything. He's not swinging for any like giant stadiums. But Blitz looks like a bit different, right? Like it's an intimate story, but like one part maybe Home Alone, and you know, like Kevin's run away and Catherine O'Hara's got to go find him before the movie's over. But also like, you know, something sincere and something I didn't know a lot about, despite the films I've seen about this period in history. Nobody mentioned that London was getting bombed for 8 months every single night. That sounds wild and crazy. So as far as those sequences go in the movie, heart pounding, over fast, I mean, long, short, like what are we looking at?
It's harrowing.
London's getting bombed?
There are several sequences, you know, because the bombing was constant. I was reading that at one point, London was bombed 56 days out of 60 in whenever it was, 1944 or so, 2 months straight, nearly every night. And people just, you know, they kept on living their lives. I remember reading a real interesting thing that you either got killed in the bombing or you didn't, and very few people actually survived any type of bombing. If you got bombed, you were just gone. And so it actually kind of helped to not have that much panic, because most people did completely survive, or you didn't. There was no in between. But the sequences are, like I said, it's heart pounding. Reminds me of things from like Dunkirk, Titanic. Even there's a flood. There's a section where there's thousands of people in one of these London subways, and like the walls break and it starts to flood and everyone's trying to get out, and it's just like heart pounding. And there's also there's sequences where, you know, they're exploring bombed out buildings that have real shaky infrastructure because of things have been bombed out, but there's valuable things they need, or there's people trying to rob the place. So it's probably the biggest film that he's made scale wise, because like I said, there's places where there's hundreds of extras, all in period clothing and luggage and having to coordinate. So yeah, it's definitely incredible. And like you said, Saoirse Ronan also has a big part, as she discovers about halfway through the movie that her kid is missing, that they've lost him and doesn't know where she is. So then she's going on a journey as well to find him. She pairs up with Harris Dickinson, shows up briefly as a British soldier to help her kind of look for her son. She also does some singing in this. She sings as part of the movie. She sings a song, which is, and I've heard there might be some Oscar talk for that. But yeah, there's a lot going on. The two stories don't really, like, it doesn't really pull at your heartstrings the way I think it's trying to. But you can't ignore the craft of it.
Well, yeah, that actually leads me perfectly into my next question. I want to ask about Saoirse Ronan. I don't think I've ever seen her play a mom. And more importantly, I wanted to know what is she doing in this performance that is getting Oscar buzz? Because like I don't know anybody in my life that's talking about Blitz from Steve McQueen on Apple TV Plus. Like, you're the only person I know that even caught a theatrical screening. What's where's the fairy dust? What's the magic?
Again, she's a mom grieving who's trying to find her son. She has lost her husband essentially to racism. Her husband gets deported, and so he's just not around, and she has a mixed race son who deals with a lot of direct racism. And again, the women she worked with, they're all working hard to get better working conditions, better pay. They're staging their own protests of sorts, but while also trying to be inspirational to the war effort. Just a lot of real emotional scenes that she has to carry on her back.
Let's talk about George, played by Elliot Heffernan, right? The son. You said he is fantastic. It is rare, I think, that we see a child actor or actress like put on a performance that holds attention so well, because it's hard, dude, for kids to act. Like, kids don't really know how to act. They can act like themselves, but like they don't have methodology.
Yeah.
And they haven't been doing it for decades.
Yeah,
and they got pressure from their parents just off camera. Right. Yeah. So is there a gimmick? Is he like a quiet kid half the movie, or is he thoughtful, or is he doing big speeches? I mean, like, how's the kid at the center of this thing?
It's more of a physical role where he just has to. I mean, again, it is his story, not Saoirse Ronan's. He's the main character, and he's working his way back. So he has to do a lot of very physical acting, because it's a lot of running, a lot of going from place to place, interacting with a lot of different characters, trying to find his mom, trying to avoid bad people, try to get the things he needs. So I mean, he gets tons of screen time in this, and I think he's really great. And it's a ton to put on a kid that young.
Yeah, absolutely. Apple TV Plus joint. Is this one of these movies where like with Scorsese and Killers of the Flower Moon, or Matthew Vaughn and Argyle, like Apple just gave like $150 million to Steve McQueen and said, make what you want? Like, what do you know about the production behind this?
Not much. It's definitely an expensive movie because of the period piece element and the number of extras. I'm like, oh, this is getting up there. But it's definitely, this is made as an awards contender for sure. And we'll know the Oscars are then they get announced in January, so it's just a couple of months. We'll see how the campaigns do. Saoirse Ronan's also going to be up for best lead actress from The Outrun, which we haven't watched on the show, but I've heard is really good as well. She is the main actress in that film. So yeah, I don't know much about the production though.
Yeah, that's all right. I was going to say, what haven't I asked you? Any other thoughts or recommendations? Because I haven't seen it, but I want to make sure you get out. I mean, anything else you got?
There's a good cast of supporting characters. Like I said, Harris Dickinson, Benjamin Clementine, Kathy Burke, Paul Weller, the great Stephen Graham shows up. So you have George, the child character, running into a cast of characters, and that's the whole point, is to show the different lives of people who lived through this, the rich, the poor, the people in the middle, the soldiers, the people running shelters, the people trying to rob and take advantage of this situation, all under constant bombing, which is insane to think about. Like, we've never had to worry about that kind of thing in America because of geography, and that sort of thing could never really happen now, but it's amazing to think that people did live through something like that.
As soon as I said early in this review that, like, I didn't know the London got bombed for 8 months, I was like, somebody's going to get on the comments and be like, you didn't know? Haven't you ever? No, dude, I'm in America. I didn't know that. Sorry. Like, I'm sure that's a big deal. It sounds like a big deal in Steve McQueen's
We don't have that problem
to check
here.
it out.
No
Tragically,
one
no.
bugs
Yeah, we got oceans on both sides. Like, what are you going to do? Anyway, I should get out of global politics. That's not for me to say. I should ask you, though, Andy, would you recommend Blitz?
Yeah, it's a great it's a great film, incredibly harrowing, good performance from our leads. It's one of these kind of safe, take your family to. Like it's got intense scenes, but it's nothing like, it's not super graphic or violent. It's PG-13, so take the family. It is real inspiring. It's got a little bit something for everyone. Again, the scale of it and the craft, the filmmaking craft is really incredible. So I think that's probably not even in theaters anymore, but be sure to catch that on streaming when you can.
Yeah. I don't have Apple TV Plus currently, but I'm going to re-up in December for the new seasons of Severance, so I can rewatch season 1. So then I'll check out that and Killers of the Flower Moon, which I still can't buy a Blu-ray for, which is super lame, and I'm still upset about every time I think about it. With that, we should wrap up the show. Andy, my God, what a week at the movies. You've watched like 6 things. I've watched like 2. What are we watching next week?
It's a Barbenheimer style weekend with 2 huge movies, most anticipated of the year: Gladiator 2 and Wicked, both coming out this Friday. Get your tickets, see it. It's supposed to be huge. Like I said before, Wicked, $100 million opening weekend. Gladiator, like 80 million, something like that. They're both going to be really big. And then upcoming next week, as we enter the Thanksgiving holiday week, Moana 2 comes out next Wednesday. Remember, it releases a little bit early, so we can really catch that 5-6 day holiday weekend. And then also coming out next week, Maria, which is the Maria Callas biopic on Netflix, Luca Guadagnino's Queer, and September 5th, which we haven't really talked too much about. This is a movie about the 1972 Munich Olympics when the Israeli athletes were taken hostage. Steven Spielberg made a movie called Munich about that same thing. This is told from a different perspective of the newsroom that kind of was capturing all this, and it's this thing, well, we're the sports team, but we're like 100 yards from where this is happening. So this is our story now. And it's about the kind of the ethics of what do you do when there could be a possible terrorist attack live on TV. I heard a lot of great things, but haven't really seen too much promotion about this. But that's September 5th. But next week, Gladiator 2 and Wicked.
I should be a lot more excited for Thanksgiving week 2024. I should be stoked, right? Like, we got some bangers coming up. Big budget pictures. Gladiator 2 from Ridley Scott. Sword and Sandal, he does it best. Wicked, big musical. Warner Brothers putting it out. Moana, Disney's got an animated feature coming out. And then I get to look forward to indie banger Luca Guadagnino putting out Queer. It's going to be great with Daniel Craig. Dude, I'm so upset by the run times by these movies. I can't get over it. And there's nothing I can do. It is what it is.
6 hours at the theater.
Why are Gladiator and Wicked both 3 hours long? 2 hours 40? Are you kidding me? Like, in this day and age? Whatever. It's fine. Anyway, if you want to hear our reviews of Gladiator and Wicked coming up just next week, easiest way to do that is to hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to Off Script Film Review to get new episodes delivered straight to you, straight to your phone. If you hit the notification bell, if you're on YouTube, it'll come to you even faster. Be direct. The second we upload it, you get it. You can be one of the first to get in and hear what we think. Or you can let us know what you thought of the show in the comments below that YouTube video or below the Facebook post. We're on all the social media places: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're over on YouTube where big things are happening with the show. Please come check us out on YouTube. Please come check us out on YouTube. I would love for you to be over there. All our audio fans know where we're at: Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, of course, iHeartMedia. You can check out our website, offscriptfilmreview.com, and you can leave us correspondence direct. Email, all right? The OG, right after print, though, at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. I think that covers it. My God, episode 273, done and gone behind us. Heretic's a good time. You also check out Heretic. And Emilia Pérez. And Blitz. It's good. It's a good show. It's a good show all around. With that, we should wrap it up. That's Off Script Film Review, the home of bold cinema. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.